my great pleasure to introduce the director of the film, Kwedar. Clarence Maclin. And of course, Colman Domingo. Well, with that, Greg, this is your third feature film with your filmmaking partner, Clint Bentley, and each has taken place in a very different world. When did you first start thinking about making a film about life in incarceration, and how did you encounter rehabilitation through the arts?
Thank you, and thank you all. It's been wonderful. Dino and I were haunting you in the back of the theater at the end because we like to get a vibe check before we come on stage, and the vibes were good. So I've been working on this movie for over 8.5 years, and all the way back to the beginning, I came across the story quite unexpectedly. I was producing a short documentary inside of a maximum security prison in Kansas. It was my first time ever behind the walls. And on the tour of the facility, we were doing a doc about something else, but I passed by a cell, and there was a young man raising a rescue dog inside of a cell. And it immediately stopped me in my tracks because there in that moment, I witnessed healing that was happening in both directions between this man and this animal. I felt compassion, I felt love, and it completely upended all my expectations of prison and incarcerated people. And the reason I was really frustrated in that moment, because a lot of those expectations were built upon our own industry, the movies I grew up watching. And that night in the hotel room, I was just desperate to know, was there anyone else out there doing things differently? And so I typed that into Google, who is doing things differently in prison? And near the top of the search field was this program in New York, Rehabilitation Through the Arts. And they've been around since 1996, founded by a woman named Catherine Hawkins, and several of the men inside, including this man right here, Dino Johnson, one of the founders of the program. You know, throughout the early years, they'd done all the classic plays. They've been covered in a lot of the major press, but there was this Esquire article that I read that night in the hotel about a 2005 production of a time-traveling musical comedy about Reagan High School. And I was like, what is that? It was the playfulness of the work juxtaposed against the environment it was set within. You know, it was the joy of the process that was so attractive to me. It felt like an act of defiance. And I was desperate to know more. And one of the first people I reached out to was the guy who wrote this play. Reagan High School, the real life Brent Buell, had been a 10-year volunteer of the program. He's actually here in the house tonight. The real life Brent Buell is in the back of the room. You need to meet the men who lived it. Come to New York, come to breakfast at my apartment, and I'm going to introduce you to some of my friends. And several of those are on the stage right now, and that was the beginning. We actually thought we were going to make it that year. But man, am I grateful that the movie that happened is the one that happened now, because it wouldn't have been able to happen without the men who are on the stage. It wouldn't have happened without Colman Domingo, who entered this story 6 years ago.
You took a uniquely collaborative approach to developing this film, to writing this film, and then ultimately to casting the film. What was your philosophy in kind of coming into this story, and when did you decide that you were going to enlist alums from the program in the cast?
It was a process. Trust the process. It was a process, but at the very beginning, that first breakfast, we were aware of the immense talent, the depth of the experiences of these men. I mean, I met the first person who came to through that doorway for that breakfast was Clarence, and I almost felt him before he entered the room. I mean, the dude's a star. And, and it was just, and it's like, what makes a star? What makes everyone who was on the stage is a star? And it's that thing that it's like, you don't know how to describe it, you just know it when you see it. And that was evident in abundance. But we always felt like the alumni would be a feature of the movie, even then, 8 years ago. But as we progressed year after year after year, it moved from a feature to the heartbeat of the movie. And we got really interested in this idea of an exchange. What can happen when someone of Colman's craft and history through this art form can dance alongside these men who have truly lived it? It's what happens when you enter a space and someone can be both a teacher and a student at the same time. And that was something we arrived at, but we didn't know in the beginning. We just were open to discovering. I have to say, this movie wouldn't have happened had not Colman entered into the space with us. And, we met 6 years into the journey, but it was at the moment we needed it. And the fact that he raised his hand, just said, yes, I'm going to give not just a commitment to do this movie, but I'm going to give all of myself as an actor, as a storyteller, as a producer. And like once he leaned in, it was like, okay, now's the time.
Colman, I know you had your own history with an arts program at the start of your career. What was it about this particular project that won you over and made you want to join it?
I think these men on the stage, the fact that once I did some research with an Esquire magazine article about this program, and I knew these human beings who were holding on to art and as a tool to help them, unearth feelings that they didn't know they had and process and their humanity and tell stories, and they loved it as much as I did. I feel like, and they've been getting their training and they've become craftsmen in this form. It made me, I just wanted to cheer them on and help tell their stories. There's such diverse stories, because usually when most of us, I think, personally, I think the film works best because when it's looking at our unconscious biases that we all have. We all think, oh, here comes that scene. Oh, he's going to get shivved now. But then we're like, no, it keeps transforming. So I feel like what I loved about all these stories, I'm like, oh, I have to really deconstruct anything that I thought about these human beings inside and look at them as individuals with names and history and stories and love and aspirations and people who are doing the work, people who are wrongfully convicted. It's like there's a myriad of stories in there, and they're all human. And in particular, I'll just say this, I'll say it, in particular, because these were Black and brown men that I want to hold on to, I want to lift up, and I want to show who they are. And I know they want to help me as well. So it became that exchange, all that love, So I wanted to get behind these men that I feel like a lot of times that society casts aside. But I'm like, no, we're not going to do that. That story changes.
The real life Divine G was involved in this process throughout as well, and he appears in the film as the book fan early on who asks for an autograph in the book, his own book.
He was so nervous to do that. He was so cute.
Can you tell us a little bit about what your preparation was in terms of your relationship with him? And is there a point where you think of you're playing a character as well and not just kind of playing this person that you've now met?
Well, it's funny. It started even more so with this guy. We started having conversations, and I started to know more about him through him and their friendship and things like that. And then we started to craft more of a story around it and around this brotherhood and friendship. So it's not just only his story. And also, I thought it was important to not, I didn't want to, I don't like asking people questions like they're an anthropological study. You know what I mean? I think that feels rude to me. I'm like, no, we're going to have dinner and just get to know each other. And I'm going to just, every so often, like, I'm an observer. I'm going to look at the way you sit, the way you eat, or whatever. And I got from him, I'm like, oh, this guy, he's always been, I think, I'm going to tell you what I think I know about him. I would glean certain things about him, about like how smart he was and how he advocated for other people, how he actually still believed in the system that got him in there. He still believed it could work. So for me, I was like, I got a sense of who this man is. So it's like more broad strokes that way. And then I wanted to just be gentle with the way I sort of portrayed him and make him more of an everyman. I'm not sure if I'm exactly calibrating and being him, but my brothers here would say, oh my God, yes. You got something, that was him. That was him. I was like, oh, well. Because I think what we all try to do as actors is try to do that soul work. So you get a piece of that person's soul, you got them. But it's not mimicry. It's like getting under the hood and getting into that soul and why they do what they do. And so for me, that's my exploration. And that's where I feel like I found my access point of him, of someone who, even in all this darkness, still was holding on to light.
Well, what you also found is like, what was really critical is that you both like spinach.
True. Yeah, we were on the Zoom and we're like, I don't know how we were talking about stuff like that, but like, oh man, I love spinach. I'm like, I love spinach too. Oh my God, we both love spinach. We find little bits
that
like that
too.
Clarence, this film finds you playing yourself in this story. What was it like to kind of get in touch and to kind of bring yourself back to this other point in your life when you were kind of a very different person than you are today?
Well, first of all, thank all of y'all for being here. Thanks for having me. Traveling back to have to visit that type of mindset of all that time that we did in prison in a place that we consider hell, you know, to even walk back through the door, to voluntarily go back inside, voluntarily put the uniform on that identifies you so well as being an outcast of society. You know, I don't know whether it was me psychologically or my brothers may be able to test, but every time I put that uniform back on, I began to itch during the course of making this movie. It itched me a little bit, you know, but as far as playing myself, I mean, to say that would like greatly take away from a lot of the people that came inside to train us to be actors. You know, a lot of people came in, a lot of great people. We had a lot of hours of training, and a lot of people sacrificed a lot of their time and a lot of themselves to come inside prison and train us, to give us training to be this. So it really was like experiences that I had witnessed during the course of my 17 years in prison, and also behaviors that I had come across that, and my own personal experiences as well, that I crafted into that particular version of myself. So to do it was a conscious choice. It was something I knew we had to do because the message needed to get out. Because you needed to know that there is a portion of population in every prison that of men who actually want to do better for themselves and actually want to come home and be positive members of society and be able to contribute. You know, but unfortunately, the media and the movie has never focused or even shine a light on that portion of population. They only glorify the violence of the prisoners or the corruption of the officers. Not to say that those things don't happen, because prison is a really violent and rough place. However, there's a lot more going on in prison than that, because we're all human. And my heart didn't turn off, and my mind didn't turn off when I got convicted. Those things continue to grow, and if we nurture them, those things right, and you know, put a little compassion and trust into those things in every human, I'm sure that we will find better people, you know? So, yeah.
Well, You also played a character called Hamlet.
Oh yeah, I enjoy that. Thank you. Thank you.
Clarence, I was hoping you could tell us a little bit about your working relationship with Colman, since that relationship on screen is so delicate and amazing, and is the kind of part of the movie. What was your kind of like? What was your dynamic like when you were working together?
Well, like my brother said, we first initially met on Zoom. On Zoom calls, we began rehearsing. We got introduced to one another that way. However, we started learning little things about each other just through casual conversation that had absolutely nothing to do with the script, the article, the movie, or anything. We found out that we were a day apart. He's November 28th or November 29th. So this kind of like explained the connection and the kindredness a little bit, how we can finish each other's sentences and things like that. These things gradually happen because of the communication that we had, and I'm grateful for RTA and the theater program and the arts that I got into, because it allowed me to craft my vocabulary a little better to where I could be acceptable in conversations, because I wasn't before.
I want to echo that. I think that we found the way we work together to be very an open exchange. Here we are. With every project, I think you have to just sort of like create a brain trust, right? And it's like something like, okay, this is where we're going to go. We're going to allow ourselves to be this vulnerable and this stripped bare, and to create safe spaces to do dangerous work together. Mm-hmm. And I think, from people who've had the lived experience, and then someone coming outside of it wanting to, just give what he could, to help tell the story. We had to find this dance together. And I think a lot of trust. That's like, I look at all the scenes that we just do together, and it's like, no, it's like, I remember I would look you in the eye, I'm like, no, go harder. Go. Yeah. And I'm going to create a safe space for you to tap into something.
Right. I remember those days.
You know what I mean? You know what I mean? But it's safety in it, and we can go there because we knew we couldn't shirk that. You know what I mean? Right.
I'm up on stage with the great Colman Domingo, So I'm not trying to go to, and he's like, man, let it go. All right, your best shot. All right, let's go.
No, but I'll just tell you this: these men, especially you're a sponge, really, because whatever, these guys are learning, for the stage, and all I got to do, I'm like, cool, how was that? I was like, now just focus on the camera right there. Just the camera. And this man dropped in so quick, I was like, well, that's it. That's all the training. That's it. It's a wrap.
Yeah, I learned a lot from Colman. I learned how to bring that thing straight. Because we were trained in the theater, and we had the theater in Sing Sing didn't have the best sound system, and we worked with what we had, basically. So I have to project from the diaphragm, right, Brent? So that the guy in the last seat over there could hear every enunciation and my brother Colman showed me how to bring that thing into the 8-inch lens and reach inside and bring it out. So I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, I'm grateful for you. You're beautiful actor.
Dino, the scene that you have with Clarence, where you talk about this being a space, and like you get to be human and learn to be human again, I think is like one that is really just devastated me. I was wondering if you could speak a little bit to that scene, and also to how much that reflects the feelings you had maybe about the program.
For you to understand what was going on in my head in that scene was you have to know what the arts mean to me. In RTA, when we go into that classroom and we start going through, that was sacred space. And we always told everybody, leave it at the door. All that extra stuff, leave it at the door. Ego, all that, at the door. We're all students. And in RTA, every now and then, someone would come. In RTA, there was always somebody that would walk through those doors, and they would bring the politics of prison, and it would hurt me to my heart. And they was willing to jeopardize everything we worked for. And you have to know that I was an introvert. I couldn't effectively communicate. I was a guy that stood in the corner and I'll just sit there. I'll just watch it and smile. I didn't do anything. And I held so much in for years. And when I found that safe space, that was like a paradise to me. So as we go in that scene, and Divine Eyes going right across the stage talking about this violence and all of this, I'm thinking about all the guys that came in to the workspace and brought the garbage. And that hurts me. And my emotions was all over the place. It's like a rage almost. And I depended on my brothers. I love my brothers. And I would feel comfortable enough to come out. And they was always there to catch me. And in that process, I also learned how powerful stillness is. Especially when the rage is pounding. So in that scene, I wanted to, but I knew that I wasn't trained, that wasn't the way to communicate it. And through stillness, my voice, I didn't know how to effectively use that when I was younger. I didn't know how to use my body when I was younger. These are all things I learned in RTA. And these are things that made me more effective as a father, as a person, as another brother.
That's right.
And I became comfortable with sharing to a point where I lost the gate. They used to lock it in. So it just comes out. That scene was very personal to me because it's a true story. I actually watched someone die in front of me. And I went back to my cell. I didn't feel human because we sat there and we pretended that it's okay. On that day, when it happened, I also realized that I am no longer comfortable doing the norm. That was a lot of growth.
Yeah, that's right.
JJ, this film shows us so much about how the prison system is dehumanizing and brutal, and it also shows us that how the ways in which the system resists acknowledging people who have been wrongfully convicted, like Divine G and like you, much less addressing that and what a fight that has to be. You have received huge news recently. You were exonerated. What is the importance of kind of showing that story in this film?
That's a rough one, and I'm gonna tell you why. As much as I'd love to sit here and celebrate the moment of my exoneration, I sit here amongst brothers from Colman to Sean, Sam, Jose, who's not here, to Paul Racy, and to all the people on our set and the family that we've created, and to realize that I'm the luckiest man alive to be the person to talk about how I was exonerated, right? But the sad part of it is that it should have never happened in the first place. And the story that you got to witness tonight and that you're gonna be able to share with the world, hopefully, because I'm hoping that it really tugged on your heart in a real way. Because the reality is we're celebrating the success of a story that's based off of a person who, as we speak right now, still has the affliction of a wrongful conviction that he has to deal with daily when he wakes up. Right now, he's not here with us on stage because he has to work and he's driving the F train. So if you take the F train home tonight, he might be taking you home. And it's because he's struggling in his life as we celebrate the success of this story. And so think about that. Think about how we can use our voices collectively to make sure that society understands that this story matters, that this movie matters, and that people like Divine G exist in this world, that they matter. That's the message. That's what this is about. It's not about me anymore. I've been vindicated, fortunately, and I'm happy for that. But at the same token, I'm on this roller coaster of emotions because I'm sad for my brother. And the fact that we're all here and have these opportunities to share this truth with the world. And this truth is not moving the needle of justice in his life. Yeah.
That's about all the time we have. But we have a reception afterwards, so I hope you will all take the time to talk with each other. But let's get another round of applause, please.